Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Mindful Mondays on the Daily Huddle. My name is Keith Lisenbee. I am a licensed mental health professional, and I am the Chief Executive Officer and owner of Atlas Behavioral Health Consulting. Thank you all for being here today, this morning, on a Monday, or any day that you're watching this or taking a listen to this episode. Let's jump right into what we're going to talk about today. And today we are going to dive into oxytocin. Now, I've mentioned in previous episode about dopamine. I talked about in previous episode about dose and the dose effect. I talked about dopamine and oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins. So today I'm going to focus attention similar to last time, but I'm going to focus on the O. I'm going to focus on the oxytocin. This is the hormone, okay, the neurochemical in our brain behind connection, trust, and emotional safety. If dopamine fuels action and motivation, oxytocin fuels human connection. It is one of the only one of those big four that you need another person for. It is the warmth you feel in a good hug, the calm after a vulnerable conversation, or the peace of simply being with someone who gets you. We'll explore how oxytocin works in the brain and body, how it supports your body budget, which is a concept from the neuroscientist Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett, and how to boost it using insights from TJ Power, another neuroscientist, and through our intentional empathy framework. We'll also give you practical tips rooted in the science, rooted in self-awareness to help you build stronger relationships and more emotional energy every day. So let's get right into it. Now, before we start, please do us all a favor by liking the video, by making a comment on the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this episode with someone who you think may benefit from our talk. It would mean so much to us. Thank you so much for being here. So, what is oxytocin? Oxytocin is often called the love hormone or the connection chemical. It is released as a neurotransmitter, neurochemical, when we experience physical touch, eye contact, emotional sharing, laughter, or bonding. TJ Power, as I mentioned earlier, identifies oxytocin as the O in the dose model: dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins, all natural neurochemicals tied to happiness and well-being. Oxytocin makes us feel safe and connected. It enhances empathy, trust, and intimacy. It's about not about big gestures. It's just sitting beside someone quietly, for example, petting your dog or your cat, or making eye contact while listening can all trigger it. Unlike dopamine, which peaks and crashes, particularly with our kind of high-tech society that we live in, oxytocin builds gently and lasts longer. It's the steady warmth of a supportive relationship, not the quick rush of a reward. Let's talk about the body budget and oxytocin. Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett's body budget refers to the brain's system for tracking energy, stress, and physical needs. When you're emotionally stressed, socially isolated, or overworked, your budget some goes into a deficit. And that deficit causes a lot of significant problems as we go through our days and our nights. That is when you feel more tired. That is when you feel more anxious. And that is when you feel more emotionally raw. Oxytocin replenishes that budget. A warm hug, kind words, or a deep talk deposits emotional resources back into your system. These experiences trigger calm and resilience. Oxytocin also reduces cortisol, which we've all heard of, you haven't heard of before, but it is the stress hormone. We need less of that to feel better. It also, oxytocin lowers our heart rate. It boosts our ability to handle challenges. Simply put, connection heals. Connection fuels us. Now, what drains oxytocin? We talked about also what last time, what drains dopamine? Well, oxytocin can get drained too. Isolation, chronic stress, doom scrolling, digital overload, and superficial interactions all reduce oxytocin. And we all have heard about, toxic relationships and being maybe in a toxic workplace. Well, those types of interactions, those types of relationships, they don't build oxytocin. They are superficial and negative and toxic. They deplete. So it has to be with these connections, has to be with the right people to build the oxytocin. You might be connected, for example, on like an online situation or a Zoom call, but without real eye contact, touch, or emotional presence, oxytocin doesn't activate. Even multitasking during conversations, like texting while we're talking or listening or trying to, breaks the loop, breaks the cycle of building the oxytocin up. In the long term, a low oxytocin life increases emotional fatigue. We feel disconnected, unsafe, and even more reactive. Dr. Barrett's research shows that when your body budget is low, you're more likely to feel sadness or anger, even in neutral situations. This is how important oxytocin is. Now let's talk about boosting oxytocin using some key 5 principles from intentional empathy. Those include the presence, awareness, clarity, pacing, and boundaries. Now, presence. Now, that's key. Give your undivided attention. Try, putting this thing down. Try device-free time with loved ones. During conversations, maintain eye contact. 60% is the target. 60% of your interaction should be with eye contact or a little bit less. More is too much. Way less is too little. Nod. 3 good, slow nods to show that you're listening. Show connection. Build it. And use affirming gestures. Even 5 minutes of full presence strengthens emotional bonds and releases oxytocin. Awareness. Listen carefully. Label, mirror, and reflect. Label what you observe in someone's emotional state. Mirror the last 1 to 3 words that someone says to imply, tell me more. Reflect what you hear. Notice and validate someone's feelings in this way. It helps them feel seen. It triggers oxytocin in both of you, the listener, the person you're talking with, you're converting with, and you. Clarity. Be honest about your emotional state. Be self-aware. Read the signals in your body that are telling you that stuff is going on, stuff is happening. Read them. Be honest about them. Practice using clear feeling words. Those words that label our emotional state. These are concepts. For example, saying something like, I feel anxious today and I need support. Clarity invites emotional reciprocity and builds connection. And guess what? I just figured out how to pronounce the word reciprocity. Pacing. Slow your pace. And you're probably asking me right now to slow mine. Practice the 4-second hug rule. Yes, a hug. 4 seconds is a 4-second hug rule. When hugging a partner, a friend, or a child, and if you don't have any of those available and you have a dog, a cat, a nice pet you can cuddle with, hold them for 4 to 10 seconds. Research shows that longer comfortable touch increases oxytocin. Also, it leave pauses in those conversations too. Don't rush to respond. Listen. Use dynamic silence. So hug 4 to 10 seconds with someone you love or a pet you love. Also pause. Don't rush in conversation. Slow your pace. Slow your breathing. Okay. Very, very important. Another big important thing around oxytocin, and you might find this a little strange, is the idea of boundaries. Protect that connection time. Yes, protect it. Set sacred spaces like phone-free meals, walks, or unplugged mornings. Create rituals, morning check-ins, evening gratitude circles, or shared breathing before bed. And a note about bed. If you and your partner, for example, are lying in bed and you're scrolling on your phone at night, guess what? Guess what? You're choosing dopamine over connection. You're choosing dopamine, which is that rise and fall crash if you're doom scrolling at night, over connection. And making that choice decreases your oxytocin, decreases your connection with your partner, your spouse, etc. And then that reduced connection reduces your overall connection in a relationship. So be really careful about that nighttime, bedtime routine. TJ Power, for example, recommends limiting social media use before and after time with others to preserve attention and deepen that bonding. Remember, deeper bonding, deeper connection, more oxytocin, more feel good. Some additional strategies here, okay? Talked a little bit about the no phone zones or no phone times. Like if there are shared spaces, for example, have a no phone space or zone where there's no phones allowed in that space. Schedule during the day with someone a 10-minute connection break. Text or call someone and check in. It's always good to have 3 people in your life that you can, in a 10-minute break, just reach out to really quickly, and they'll reach back out to you. Gratitude journaling. Write down 3 things you appreciate about someone and then tell them. Acts of service, another one. Helping others boost both oxytocin and mood. When you do things for other people, laughing. That's one of the rules of the 8 of the Daily Huddle. With laugh together, laugh with each other, watch something funny, recall a shared funny story. Laughter builds oxytocin too. Shared movement. Now, movement, as you'll notice, movement's key to all of these in some way, but shared movement with someone else. Dance, walk with someone, stretch. Movement also builds oxytocin with someone else. Play. Yes, play. Did you forget to play? Stop, when you turned as an adult? No, go back to play. Adults need fun. We all need fun. Games, singing, playfulness all build connection. Neuroscience research shows oxytocin improves trust and emotional memory. It buffers our stress and improves our ability to emotionally regulate. The more you practice connection habits like the ones that we've discussed, the more resilient your brain becomes. So here's a real life scenario here. You've had a very stressful day. It's Monday, and you feel totally disconnected, isolated, feel even alone. Instead of zoning out with a TV show or, watching YouTube videos about, cats up a ladder, you text a friend. Can we, is, is it a good time to talk for 10 minutes? When you do that, you have someone to connect with, share openly, they listen. You hang up the phone and you feel lighter. Not because the world suddenly changed and suddenly solve all the world's problems in 10 minutes, though you wish you could, but your world changed for that 10 minutes because you didn't feel alone anymore. That is oxytocin in action. All right, here we go. Weekly challenge time. Your challenge this week, choose one oxytocin building action daily. Hug someone for more than 4 seconds. Share a tech-free meal. Offer emotional support. Say something kind. Each night, reflect. Did I feel closer? Did I feel more grounded? These are the building blocks of building your oxytocin and also building emotional resilience, which is something I think we all could use in ample abundance. Thank you for listening, and I'm going to open the floor. Whoever is live with us, if they want to jump on, ask some
Good
questions
morning,
about
Keith.
oxytocin, please go right ahead.
I do have a question. You mentioned the bo body budget, and if I understand you correctly, a chronic uh, deficit in oxytocin creates a deficit in the body budget. And if that happens chronically and doesn't get addressed in any way, what could be the consequences to a human being?
Great question. And first off, oxytocin is one of the main things that if we build in improves our body budget or can deplete our body budget. There are other things, other neurochemicals, and even, food and things like that. Everything builds into the budget. It's like a bank with a lot of currencies, but oxytocin's a big one. So over a length of period of time, if you are in a body budget deficit, then what happens is your brain then starts signaling to your body messages to essentially conserve whatever energy and whatever resources that your body has left to conserve them as hard and as quickly as possible. What that means for us in real time is feelings of lack of energy, lack of motivation, not wanting to connect, not wanting to eat, maybe eating too much, maybe too much sleep, heightened anxiety, loss of interest in things, and just sort of overall kind of a melancholy feeling about life. In other words, those are symptoms that are quite consistent with depression. Depression really is a depletion, a constant state of being in a body budget deficit from a neuroscience perspective.
That's that raises an implication for the workspace.
Yes.
Something I hear a lot in corporate spaces and company spaces is that there are certain behaviors that are made for home and friends and family, and those behaviors are some not even discouraged, more like prohibited in a work environment.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Hugs, some eye contact in a way, speaking in a certain way. So I'm thinking, could it be that in corporate environments, people, even though they get it at home and elsewhere, but given that we spend most of our time at work, could it be that people in general find themselves in a chronic body budget depletion that's connected directly to oxytocin? And if that's the case, what do you advise people in corporations and in the workspaces to do?
Well, yes, this raises a huge issue, and I think also a somewhat controversial one, as we've been hearing about corporations then going away from their work from home policies that they started back in 2020 at the start of the pandemic, and having people come back to work 2 days a week, 3 days a week, 4 days a week, even full time. And what I have found anecdotally and scientifically through just research and on the subject is that when workers are spending their entirety of their work time, at home, working from home, engaging with work colleagues, only through a Zoom call only, or just isolated completely and not even in contact with anyone at all, except maybe through a chat or a phone call, then two things happen. One, they could pretty easily get into an oxytocin deficit pretty quickly and pretty easily, depending on how much the contact they have with family, friends, and significant others outside of work, right? That's going to be the critical key. But here's the second thing is, and this was a struggle and still is a struggle with corporations now from the ones that I've been working with, is the idea of team bonding. Like we're all working as a member of a team at work, and we're not really bonded with each other. We're not connecting. If we're spending all of the time with eyeballs on a screen in these meetings, then there's that missing connection. They're not getting that boost of oxytocin and bonding with their team of colleagues and workers. And people are not bonding, if they're only meeting their supervisor online or through a phone call, they're not connecting with their supervisor, which we know your relationship with your supervisor is the number one determinant factor of job satisfaction.
Hmm.
So with that being said, oxytocin depletion in work setting, only has negative connotations and results.
Yeah, so now in a space where many corporations are saying, yep, let's get back to the workspace. Come on live at least 2 or 3 times a week, if not permanently. There's still this thing that, oh, we don't hug in the workplace. We don't we don't high five. We don't subscribe to the behaviors, because you mentioned earlier that oxytocin is that thing that requires another human being.
Mhm. Right.
And I'm wondering, does it have to be intimate, or could it be platonic? How do people generate oxytocin at work while they're together in the same space? Because they're frowned away from it, I think.
Yeah, and in one of the key messages here in that um, I hope that I got across is that there are many ways that people can build oxytocin together. It does not always require necessarily intimate conversation or touch. There are
4 minute
obviously,
hug
right?
is a four
You know,
second hug is kind of tough at work.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, yeah, I know people that hug at work. I know that and
Yeah.
people fist bump at work and high five each other at work and things like that. I think that's great. But some work cultures don't allow for that. And it's not, for whatever reason. And that's cool too. But sitting down and having a one-on-one good conversation with someone, where I mentioned earlier about using some of those communication and listening tactics, about labeling that I've talked about before, and about mirroring and having those good, strong conversations where that builds connection. If I spend 5 minutes with someone, with a colleague at work, and I connect with them for 5 minutes and I reflect and I label what's going on with them, and they share deeper information, a little bit of a deeper information, not too deep, doesn't have to be that deep. It's 5 minutes. That builds oxytocin too. And so that strong conversation, also counts. Being together in that way does count. They've also done studies actually also where if two people are actually sitting in a room together and they're not talking, but they're in the room together, that they've shown that oxytocin actually increases in both of them while they're actually sitting in the room together. And so that just shows there's just the absolute need to be around other people.
Is that then a call for going back to work and ending or curtailing remote work?
I I'm going to be careful on answering that question because the research will tell you, yes, try to have as much in-person time as possible. And that's what the research will tell you. The research in psychology and in neuroscience and in the workplace will tell you if you want to build better connections, better team camaraderie, better morale, then have people get together at work, and interacting with each other. Like that's going to be the biggest key of it. Yes, you can have three people sitting in a room together and build oxytocin, but that's not the best way of doing it. But the best way of doing it would be let's have a real legit meeting. And I know people are tired of meetings because some people think they're just total pointless. But the reason we have meetings, underlying reason, is because people want to get together. People want to connect, right? And that can be a big deal too. I'm not saying we should totally eliminate work from home or anything like that. That's not my place to say. But what my place is to say is that if you bring your workers back together regularly in real interaction, it could be 2 days, it could be 3 days, it could be one big full day where you have just connection making meetings that are productive, then that's going to help things.
Thank you for revealing that. I'm walking away with that. Maybe being connected to someone else and working well together is more a function of physiology than me being a good person or bad person or vice versa.
It is and it is and it isn't, because I mentioned earlier about the idea that superficial connections that are, not that are toxic, that are not, if you're dealing with someone who really is is a bad actor, kind of situation, whereas making things toxic, that's actually oxytocin depleting. So it is a matter of the types of people that we're with, just not just everybody and anybody is going to really help us boost our oxytocin and other things. So it really does matter, the types of people that we are interacting with. So it is a matter of, it is physiology, yes, but it's physiology that's being driven by connecting with the right people. Because also, as we all know, not everyone is our people. Like we don't get along with everybody, and not everyone gets along with us, and that's fine. Um, it's it's finding our people and having the interaction with people that we can have at least a fairly lower than surface level connection with. That is going to be the thing that triggers the physiological positive. Other people that are not our people, that are toxic, that are grossly narcissistic or antisocial, they're going to deplete us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's close as we always do. We always close with the 8 daily huddle rules. And let's go through them in no particular order, but we're going to go through them. Number 1, love always. Number 2, we talked about this earlier. Laugh out loud. Laugh with each other, build more oxytocin. 3, stress less. 4, eat more plant-based foods. Eat well, eat the right foods. 5, give. We talked about that earlier. Acts of service builds oxytocin. 6, utterly important, completely important. Sleep at least 7 hours. Get good quality sleep, particularly deep sleep. Number 7, move. Exercise and movement, most important thing, I think, on the list for me. And then number 8, and this is also quite important, check your assumptions. Remember, oxytocin reminds us we are wired to connect, and we truly are. So this week, protect your time for real interaction. Prioritize people over screens. Let kindness and presence and empathy restore that body budget of yours. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Remember, hit the like, make a comment, share this with someone who may benefit, and I'll see you next time.